Okay. Welcome everyone to GBSN webinar today, Future of Digital Learning, where tech meets instructional design in partnership with Nobi. I see everyone populating in here, so welcome. Please feel free to introduce yourself. I hope everyone received the Nobi platform link. That's where we'll be engaging throughout the webinar. You'll learn more about that very soon, but please have that open at the very beginning so that you can properly engage. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Gbsn CEO Dan Leclair.
Thank you very much, Nicole, and welcome everyone. We're anxious to get started, so I'll keep the introductory remarks rather brief. You'll get to know Nobi. It's always a little bit awkward for me to say, get to know Nobi as we go. So I won't spend too much time talking about this dynamic company and what it does. But I want to spend a moment introducing you to So-Young Kang and Nicola Murphy. So-Young is the founder and CEO of Nobi, and Nicola is the content creator or content engagement manager. Creator engagement manager. I need to get that right. I'm so sorry, Nicola. Nicola comes to us. She's not in New Zealand at the moment. She's in California, but you'll find out very quickly she's from New Zealand. And then So-Young is based talking to us from Singapore. And I know it's very late there, and we just appreciate So-Young staying up late and Nicola waking up early to join us for this webinar. Now, Nicola came to Nobi as an experienced teacher. She also helped start an arts conservancy, including helping to build the curriculum. So-Young comes to us as an experienced entrepreneur. She's also started an organization called the Awaken Group, but I think in many ways could be called a serial entrepreneur. She's also a young global leader for the World Economic Forum. And as we always like to say at GBSN, we're always happy to welcome business school grads. So-Young's a graduate of Harvard Business School, and I think did her undergraduate at the University of Pennsylvania. I think not in the business school, if I remember correctly, but nonetheless, a great school. So I'm gonna just pause for a moment and shift gears and just tell you a little bit about the webinar today. The reason why we're doing this webinar on the future of digital learning, where tech meets instructional design, I think in many ways could go back to when I first met So-Young quite a long time ago now. And one of the things we shared is that technology is great, but it's what we do with the technology that really matters, and how we leverage the technological capacity to, I think in many ways, not just to teach, but to engage and to transform organizations and people. So we're here to talk about a new program that we've partnered with Nobi on, and that's a micro-learning design scholarship. It's actually something they've made available more generally, but for GBSN have agreed to carve out a part specifically for GBSN members. So we're anxious to talk more about that with them, to learn from them. They're going to take about 25-30 minutes to tell us about their work. And then we're going to jump right into a Q&A period. So I'm going to turn it over to So-Young, Nicola right away. Thank you so much for joining us, and welcome everyone.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Dan. It's always so lovely to, I think it's been years since we've done something together. And we did include in the Nobi program links to the interview that Dan and I did on microlearning when Dan was at AACSB. So I'm very, very excited to be here with everyone. I'm actually really delighted to be doing this with Nicola, because Nicola recently joined us, and this is our first webinar together. So let us know how it goes. And I think it's always about learning, growing, and collaborating. And I think the whole idea of Nobi is to really be a shared experience. And so we do encourage everyone in the group chat to download Nobi and to engage with us. Not just because, you know, we want you to engage while we're having the webinar right now, but more importantly, for you to be able to connect and get access to the content in case you weren't 100% focused the entire time during this webinar, but also in case you want to share it with your colleagues more importantly. So with that, I'm really excited to be here. Nick, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure, guys. I think I've already been introduced. This is the accent. Very nice to meet you. I am from New Zealand, but based in California. And as the team have already said, I actually joined Nobi as an educator. During COVID, it was really interesting. The things that we were doing in person, we needed to shift to doing them online. And we were running a program for an international school, really needing to leverage an online tool that was interactive and engaging as best teaching practices would be at a classroom level. And so I stumbled across Nobi, and it's been a beautiful time ever since, hasn't it? So young, we've been learning and growing from each other. So really excited to be here today, guys, and walk you through our MID scholarship and get to know you guys a little bit So
Yeah.
I'll take it.
I don't have the cool New Zealand accent, but you know,
I'll teach you.
Yeah, exactly. So I need to. We're going to Nobify that into another one of our most popular, actually, public courses is how to speak Japanese. So we might do one on how to speak with a New Zealand accent.
Oh, I'm going to take that challenge on. That sounds fun.
Absolutely. So, so with that, you know, what I'm showing you all is I'm going to be showing you from my my desktop. Nicola and I will go back and forth on our desktop. I actually usually have the Nobi program in my phone so that I can basically follow along and engage, and it's synchronized. So we're just going to go ahead and get started. What is MID and micro learning instructional design? There are a lot of additional resources here as well, because we're not going to cover all the content in about 20 minutes. So we left a bunch of extra goodies for you to be able to access even after the conversation. And so hopefully some of you have already started to get multitask, and we're already getting acquainted because, you know, part of this webinar experience is also to connect and get to know each other. If we were all in person, you know, we'd see each other's faces at least and get some responses. But on a webinar, we can't see anyone. I see lovely Nicola, and that's, you know, nice to look at, and she's lovely. But I think the whole group of all the participants. So we'd love for you to just take a moment to go into session one. You know, tell us what you know about what you know about MID. How familiar are you with the concept of microlearning? So please take a moment to fill out the poll. And throughout Nobi, we're going to be interacting in and out of the app. So just have it ready with you, and we'll just get started here. I'm a little biased because I know a lot about it. So, but for the rest of you, let's see what you got.
But there's always something new to learn, right? So young.
Always, always. In fact, talking to creators, I get so inspired listening to other people and how they're using Nobi.
Yeah.
And all of you are creators. People are like, what is a creator? So Nicola, what is a creator?
What is a creator? I think anybody who has something they want to communicate to a group of people, something that's new, and they're thinking of creative ways of delivering that content in a way that's not just informing them, but actually bringing about change. I think that's the key difference. If I'm not actually bringing about change in the learner or participant, then am I actually teaching it? Am I actually creating something that's useful?
Absolutely. And so I would imagine that everyone on this in this webinar is a creator, because we all care about the content we're designing and the impact we're having. So great. And I have the poll running here. So we have 44% who know a lot about it, which is great. So we look forward to learning from you. And then we have about a third of you, about half of you. Excellent. Yeah, and so I think this will be fun. So we have a lot of experts here in the room, which is really fun, because when we open it up to Q&A, it'll be great to get, you know, some of you to participate and share with each other too.
Absolutely.
So you can, this is kind of the boring stuff that Dan talked about, so you can get to know me better. And
not
Nick,
boring for you.
Yeah, but if you want to also introduce, we'd love to have you introduce yourselves. So take a moment to just do a little selfie. I'll do one here where I am. And then I'll upload that. But if you want to share, we'd love to get to know you and see who's in the room as well with us. So just go ahead and upload that and then share it to the group. And then we would love to see who else is in the group. So give everyone a moment to just say hi. And the beautiful part of you know, a social and a shared experience is that in the group board, we'll be able to connect. Oh, hi, Dan. Amin's here. Oh, good questions. People are already asking questions, which is fantastic. Oh, hello. I don't know how to pronounce your name. Elmeen. Lovely. So I'll just say, so, you know, and obviously you can always connect with each other here. Oh, I don't have permission for this action. I wonder why. Okay. So we'll be able to do that. Okay, there we are. All right. So I'm going to go back to the program. What happened here? Let me continue. Okay.
So that you
So
guys know, we're going to hang out mostly in session 2 today. Just for navigating that left-hand sidebar, we're going to be in session 2. Sessions 3, 4, and 5 are more just extra resources once we've jumped off this webinar. So just if you're navigating, just session 2 is where you need to be today.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, so I'm just going to quickly introduce the group board. And so when you're in the app, you'll be able to just click here, or if you're in the web, you can click here. And then at any point in time, you'll be able to connect with us and with each other. So with that, we're going to jump right in. I'm curious to know who's here. I'm always just really curious on the group board. Oh, hello. Hi, Lena. So I'm actually obviously very social. So I love to connect with everyone afterwards. And what I really also love, just for those who are a little bit competitive, just want to share this because sometimes it's hidden. You can actually get to see all the members who are in the group. And then you'll be able to rank and see who's at the top of the leaderboard in terms of completion rates. So, so we'll do that here. Oh, logging in. Okay. Refreshing my browser. And so if you have any issues as well, anytime, just shake your phone. And if you shake your phone, you'll be able to report any issues. Oh, we have 20 people in the group. Let's see who's at the top of the leaderboard. Oh, I'm at the top with Dan. Oh, a lot of us are at the top of the leaderboard. Awesome. Well, anyways, so let's talk about gamification as part of that learning experience as well. So without further ado, we're just going to jump into what Nick said, which is session 2, to talk a little bit about that. So in terms of some of these things, there's going to be a lot of different things we're going to talk about. We encourage everyone to use the Q&A in Nobi as opposed to in Zoom. You can use Zoom, but if you do, after the Zoom, it'll be lost. Whereas if you post any questions here into the group board, we are committed to answering the questions afterward. And then even your colleagues, if you share this link with them and they participate, they'd be able to get the benefit of seeing the answers afterwards. So we'll just encourage you to do that as well. So with that, what do you hope to get out of this brief webinar that we're going to do? What would you like to cover? What would you like to learn? And I'm just going to click over to the group board to track some of your open questions. I guess, Nick, what are you hoping to get?
I was going to say to this point, it's really interesting when you are building out content, you can often create content, but you don't know what the audience actually needs or wants. So while you're filling this out from the perspective of, hey, what are your expectations for this webinar? Know that it's a really brilliant tool that you can use when you're creating your own content. If I know what you guys know, then I'm going to be able to cater to the questions, to the needs, to the information that you have gaps on.
Oh, absolutely. And in fact, everything that we're doing right now is what we encourage you to do. And you can just copy and paste it literally. And you can even templatize it, because I think this, especially with a lot of online webinars these days, it's become a little bit dehumanized, right? Because you can't see people, you have speakers speaking, and you don't have that same level of an engagement, right? And you don't have the visual cues to know if you're on track or off track. So I think having the opportunity to use technology to create a more human connection is really important. And one of the questions was, what does Nobi mean? And you see a bunch of gnomes behind me. Nobi stands for Grow Knowledge into Being. And I founded this company because I wanted to humanize experiences, not to dehumanize. And I'm not a techie, so I used to be a teacher before I did business. My first job was teaching. And I wanted to take that experience of being in a classroom, in a workshop with students where you're hands-on, you're doing experiential stuff, but you can't scale that. And so, with Nobi, we wanted to replicate that human experience and help grow knowledge into being. And so Nobi stands for Grow Knowledge into Being by doing things and by participating. So that's a really big reason for the name. The name is really hard to spell, hard to pronounce, but it stands for Grow Knowledge into Being.
There's some really great quick questions actually popping up on the chat, and maybe we'll send them, we'll address some of them at the end, but it's really great to know what you actually would love to know as we're going through. So we've got quite a few people that sound like they know something about microlearning is actually already, but it's more the, hey, how do we actually measure the impact of microlearning? How can we actually design them in such a way that students are, or sorry, our participants are actually engaged, that the learning sticks? Really great questions. And we'll hold those till the end, but knowing that will help inform the way we go. So we'll move on a little bit just with the content here. So we will just walk you through what the MID, what microlearning is for those of you who are just getting used to the term. And you've pulled up the slide there, nice, so young. So you could read off the slide for yourself. It really is that breaking down content into small bite-sized pieces. Why do we do that? I think because of technology, there's no lack of information anywhere. You can find information at your fingertips more than you want. And it's really hard to know what to do with it sometimes. And some of it seems really irrelevant when you go through a training and you have to do 6 hours, and actually, I could have summarized that in an hour, and I actually need it broken down steps. And I remember talking to a client in this last week, actually, and microlearning is it's kind of a jargon word we throw around, but when it really boils down to it, it really is shifting from a perspective of I'm passively engaging with the content, or I'm passively consuming the content, to microlearning really is, why are we breaking down the bits? It's to help people actually to be able to respond to it, react to it, be challenged by it, and be able to practically apply the information that has been taught. So when you think about microlearning, if you take away that term, it really is, what are my participants doing with that information? I think that's the key difference, and we're providing a tool for them to be able to do that.
Yeah, and it's interesting, and I really love you know, when Nick, you're talking about what microlearning is, I think you're talking about microlearning when it's coupled with instructional design.
100%. Yeah.
Right? Because, you know, microlearning is all the trend right now, right? So over 70% of organizations are using some form of microlearning. So what do? They just take a bunch of like long videos and they break them up into like 1-minute chunks. And they're like, this is microlearning. Well, technically it is. Exactly. Technically it is. But if you don't marry that with instructional design, you have the same impact. So, you know, if a 60-minute video was boring, what makes 61-minute videos less boring?
It's the worst, because you're just clicking through endlessly, click, 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 not knowing when it ends. And to your point, actually, the instructional design is really important, because my job as a content creator is to take them on a learning journey, not round like this, and not without a compass. I actually need to get them from point A to point B. And so the instructional design and how I actually craft that journey determines the level of change and transformation I'm going to have in the learning and the knowledge base of my applicants, and have been able to get it to a practical application, because that's really a really good key indicator of retention, right?
Absolutely. And so that's, I think, where the microlearning instructional design married together. And one of the things that's so interesting is you know, I'm like a super nerd, right? As you're probably getting to know. You know, e-learning has been around for 20 years. And have you ever heard of e-learning instructional design? Exactly. Which is why it is not surprising why the lack of engagement, completion, and why creators struggle with the tool. So we talk a lot about, like, we need to transform education, we need to transform learning. We've been talking about that for decades, right? Decades. Yet we actually have neglected to talk a lot about the most important player in that ecosystem, who is the creator. The person who's teaching has the most critical role in transforming education. But we go, okay, Nicola, transform education. Get your mind right into the future of education. Here's a 20-year-old technology tool that you must use. And this technology I'm going to give you is totally not based in learning science or research or instructional design, but I need you to use that. But while you're doing it, make sure you transform and disrupt education. And
also, I won't tell you how, or just inspire you, and hopefully you better do something with it. Yeah, no, it's interesting.
So it's really kind of shocking. And when I kind of started to think about that, I was like, oh my gosh, no wonder. Like, we have not empowered the creators. We've been giving them tools that are not helpful for transforming the way that we learn. And so as I've been thinking about that, and obviously like that's a big why, that's a big part of the why behind why we're giving away the scholarship. So just a little bit of we designed, because I'm a super nerd, we did a lot of academic research around andragogy, the science of how adults learn, behavior design and gamification principles for motivations, experiential transformative learning theory. And we looked at all those principles and said, how would we embed that into a tool and embed that into a tool in such a way that they could then design those experiences and not have to think about and have a master's, in these things, but could really just use something simple. And so we created this MID program. It's a 3-level program, and we were charging people loved it. It was, quite impactful, but the time to impact was just taking too long. And as you know, Nick, I'm kind of impatient. I was like, oh, time to impact. So we made a decision to give away $10 million worth of scholarships to accelerate that. For the future of learning, right? Because the critical key is empowering the creator.
So do you want to tell us a little bit about that scholarship?
Sure. Well, I was going to ask you to do it since you're leading it, but I'm happy to do it. These are the 3 different levels that we've talked about. And it's really, level 1 is really the science and research that underlies instructional design. And for those of you educators who are on this call, you probably have master's degrees and you know ID really well. It's then ID and then the application of micro learning with ID. Actually, Nick, you've just revamped this program,
I have, yeah. It's
it's
really exciting.
Yeah.
It's been really exciting actually just seeing people who jump on, but yeah, it's has been crafted very specifically. Fully recommend that you guys go and it takes about between 3 and 5 hours to start. It's to complete, not to start. It's one complete program split into 2 different sections. And it's quite interesting because you guys are interested in instructional design. I'll tell you a little bit. We used to have applicants create a program right at the very, very end of the program. But we found actually to one person's question, I just saw it on Nobi, how do you get their learning to stick? It's kind of like we take them through all the theory. This is how you create really great content using some of our learning theory. And then we talk them through how to actually build a program. And then we said, hey, go and create a program, submit that, and then we will give feedback and you will be given an MID certificate in micro learning instructional design, which is fantastic. What we're finding though, if you embed a practical how-to right at the end after ambushing them with a whole bunch of information, it's actually quite hard to then go back and try and apply everything that you have in your head to that task now that you're on the ground doing it. So we're actually very strategic with the certificate and actually put checkpoints all the way through so that you are applying a bit at a time, building on a bit at a time, and the practical while you're learning. Exactly. So the 2 marry and complement each other really well going forward. So it's really exciting to see people's enthusiasm as they go through that program. So looking forward to seeing you guys jump on. Did you want to speak to level 2 and 3 for us, So-Young?
Yeah, no. So level 2 is the masterclass. Now, so level 1 is open, and we encourage you to, and we actually have some educational institutions who are making this part of faculty development and staff development and training. So everyone goes through it. So we're happy to even partner with you if you want. I want 100. I want a few hundred scholarships. So we're happy to partner with you on that because we care so much about equipping the creators, right? So please do contact Nick, and then we'll be able to do that. Level 2, then after you want to become a master, you want to really hone your craft. Level 2 is a formal accreditation. Now that one is going to take a little bit more than 3 hours because you have online courses and you also have a master class. And then the 3-hour coaching masterclass, we talk about the art of MID. Now, this is where you have like, how do you design differently for technical skills versus the soft skills? How do you do virtual facilitation? And how do you take gamification to the next level, and then you have to do project submissions. So you have to submit 3 programs. And then you will get, consultants to review and give you feedback on, hey, this was a bit, wasn't that engaging or wasn't that social, or you could have leveraged this better. Good. And so it's a great opportunity to really get hands-on practice. And this is really to master your craft. And then once you're accredited, you become kind of, in a very, very, I would say, a great group of professionals who are really trying to hone the art and science of MID and be really kind of pioneers in the market. And then for some of you who want to be training partners, that's level 3. That's where we'll accredit you. We'll give you the rubric. We'll train you on how to train others to get accredited. And then we do a revenue share partnership with you for level 3. So we just encourage you to start with level 1 first. I think Nick's done an amazing job with level 1, and then get it. Do you want to take us through, Mick? How do we get up? How do people apply? How do they get onboarded, and how do they start?
Yeah, sure. So it's a really simple process. It's got the link in here. If you jump straight into the Nobi website, it's right at the top. There's a banner, but there's also a page. Or you're going to take us straight there? Thanks, So Young.
Just link. You linked it here.
There we are. We're going to. Cool thing about Nobi is I can go and change it real time. So I'll do that as soon as I start talking. It'll take you straight to the Nobi page, and you fill out a simple application form. And you're going to get an email notification sent to you, which then enables you to go straight into the program. And I believe everybody here on this call has already got a free Nobi account downloaded. So that's going to make it really nice and easy. We're excited. There's also an opportunity too, if you refer someone, to get your name put into a drawer. So if you don't actually have the finances and really, really wanting to do level 2, there is an opportunity to do that as well. So we're pretty excited to be able to offer that. And the next one, actually, for people who are interested, is coming up in the middle of August. So be looking out for emails and marketing around that soon.
Oh, you mean for level 2, the masterclass?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. It's happening in August, and that'll be global. So and for those who so the certificates, the digital certificates, are actually signed by an academic advisory board, which is made up of Professor John Kim from Harvard Business School. He's the EdTech and innovation expert at Harvard, the former dean of IMD, Dominic Turpin, and the former 2 times dean of NTU's Business School, Nanyang Business School, Prof. Neo. So so when you get your digital certificate, and you can go to LinkedIn and start to see people start posting their certificates, they're signed by our academic advisory council. And so so we do encourage you to go through that as well. So so Nick, I'm going to turn back to share, like, how are you using Nobi?
Well, we've been bouncing back and forth a little bit already, so you already know me, so I'm not really meeting you for the first time now. But this was just really an opportunity for you guys to think about different ways of using Nobi, or us to introduce them to you. I think many people that we talk to use it for one case scenario, let's just say trainings, and then don't realize that they can use it for many other purposes as well. The options are kind of endless. That's the cool thing about a tool like Nobi. And we've had people use it for small groups and interactions, for book clubs and interest groups. We've had people use it in the classroom. I know for myself, in the last couple of months, I've been using it with a group of university level students, about 60 of them in a room, using it just instead of just talking up the front. What I love about it is a cool tool to actually help facilitate more engaging experiences in the classroom level. I'd have 60 in a room, and often you only have space for 3 or 4 of them to be able to give you feedback if we stop to ask a question. But what I love about the Nobi tool is you can actually have the group wall up and actually have everybody to respond to it. So everyone gets that chance to say something, respond to somebody else's responses, as being pointed out here. And then we can kind of move forward. So there's a lot of different uses of Nobi, which is pretty exciting. Any other ones that like stick out to you, So Young?
No, I just added some of my favorite use cases. So I did a shared holiday. I did a holiday to an art show in Germany, and that only happens once every 10 years. So because that art show happens only once every 10 years, I Nobified it. So every basically station I went to, I had, because Nobi you can create on your phone, right? So I had my phone, and I was literally recording things and making my comments so that I could share it with the other people I was on holiday with. And so what's interesting though is years after I've gone to, it's called Project School to Münster. And for any of you who are art lovers and you're interested, ping me. You can ping me in the group board and message me. I'm happy to share the link and invite you to participate. But it happens only once every 10 years, right? So people who are interested were like, oh my God, I want to see that. And it's really maybe the only digital record of that art show that happened years ago. And it was basically my experience that I wanted to share with others. So it was actually, that was like one of my favorite use cases. We've used it for birthday, like shared birthday greetings when, a bunch of us want to wish someone a happy birthday. Team meetings, those are fun things. And then team meetings, obviously Nick knows we use it for all hands meetings and people in case people miss it. Daily habit stuff like, 30-day, daily inspiration or something. So there are a lot of fun things you can do in addition to, of course, the traditional learning and training.
Absolutely. That's great.
Awesome. So I think with that, I think we are kind of done with the content, like the core of the content, really kind of straightforward, easy to get started. I think we've covered a bit of the why. I'd love to go to the questions. Session 3 here gives you all of the links of how to sign up. So feel free to share this with your colleagues as well. And it also gives you kind of a layman's guide to get started. And there's a lot of other resources. And we will upload the webinar recording here after the webinar. So you can go ahead, have it access it after.
If you just jump back into session 2 there, So Young, at the very last action actually has just a bit of a Q&A session, the very last action. So guys, if you've got questions, you can go and just go ahead and throw them in there. I know some of you put them at the very, very top in terms of what your expectations were from the webinar, but if you can find them and copy and paste and pop them back in, we'll find them either way. But we really want to hand this back to Dan just to start us off and a little bit of questioning, and then we want to see what questions you guys have and really just spend the next bit of time helping answer the questions that you actually do have.
Wait, that was great. I think I'm to follow along on both the app and on the Zoom, which is a big feeling of accomplishment from my so I guess that's my way of saying if I could do it, anybody can, which is
I think this is totally reflective of my multitasking kind of personality.
I think this is great. We do have plenty of questions though in different places. I'm looking not only on the group chat on the app, but I'm also looking on the Q&A and the chat function on the Zoom. Nick, as I've come to know you as, thanks to So Young. And So Young, if you want to chime in with any of these, you're welcome to do so at any time. But I want to start with a question from Vasya that came in on the app chat about various contexts. And, I think we've already begun to imagine all the uses of this. But I'm wondering if you could also tell us more about existing users and how they've been potentially most creative within the context of education or business education in particular.
Sure.
And by the way, I'm interpreting her context to mean different kinds of programs or audiences, but it could also be because a lot of our work is in emerging economies. So talking a little bit about, I know you've done some work in South Africa, for example, those kinds of things.
Sure. Well, I think we'll answer different ways in terms of context as well as country, as well as like business schools, because I think obviously they can be leveraged, right, in multiple. I'll start with the South Africa one because you started there. It's probably one of my favorite examples. There are 40,000 unemployed youth who are basically working adults or of working age, but obviously unemployed. So they needed to be upskilled, and more than upskilled, they needed to change their mindset and develop confidence. And in order to be able to not just get a job, but to stay with the job and continue on with it, because they had issues in the past where they would get the job, but because they had not experienced working before, when they would fail or make mistakes, they could actually get demotivated and feel like they're not worth it and they are not able to do their jobs, which is absolutely heartbreaking. And so that was one of the challenges that they came to us with and said, we don't want a tool that's just going to give them skills and content. We want something that's going to go deeper to help motivate them every single day to improve confidence and a sense of self. And we've been partnering with them for 4 years now, and they're up. We started with 8,000 young people, and now they're up to 40,000. And it's just been really humbling, actually, to see what they've done, because not only have they gotten them jobs, but the young people have greater confidence and are staying with their jobs. And so for me, that's really the power of transformative learning theory at work when you're embedding it. So all credit to them. They're called Yes for Youth because they're the ones who designed, they were the creators who created these learning experiences. We just provided the tools and the software. So online and offline as well. So we created offline capabilities for them. What they did, which is really smart, is they partnered with a local telco to zero rate the Nobi app so that they didn't have to pay data when they use Nobi. So, and that was all them. That was all them. But just we learn a lot from them, right? So I think that's really fun. I think from a business school context, we have had multiple use cases ranging from executive education of doing short programs by professors to continue to engage and then kind of selling that. We have a partner that's made $1 million just on reselling short micro courses to business school or even their executive business schools and continuing education. We've had another one of the top 5 business school. They use Nobi for alumni engagement. So what they're doing is taking their key professors to provide value. And we're about to work with another very, very large, very well-known university because they want to raise donations for their alumni. And by creating stories. So they're going to be using Nobi to share alumni stories, not typical training content, but stories to then inspire the other students and then have the students be empowered to then inspire the next generation. So they're going to use it as a storytelling engagement use case, which I think is so fun. And then of course you have the traditional use case of certifications, and I get my digital certificate in project management skills or leadership or design thinking, and so all of that is possible as well using the assessments.
I say nonprofit organizations using it a lot as well to really, I mean, the latest ones that I've been working with using it for teens to help be able to connect with each other relationally better, because teens use phones, more so than going to a dashboard, helping high school leavers who are really struggling to get jobs, actually just providing training for them using a tool like this and having a facilitator. So there's so many different use case scenarios.
Yeah, I remember when I first learned about Nobi, and in light of all of these creative use cases for Nobi, mine seems rather simple, but I remember thinking about when I was a professor, just teaching a course usually at night once a week. And my challenge was always to gain share of the mind share between sessions, right? To get them to think about and to interact with themselves as well as with content. And I just thought, well, Nobi, and in general, mobile micro learning would have been a great thing for me to leverage at that point. I want to shift gears though, because in fact, this is a good opportunity, So Young, for me to tell them about one of our previous interactions. We brought So Young to a meeting of deans. I forget how many deans in the room, 25?
About 30. About 20 to 30. Yeah, I think there were about 30, yeah.
And unbeknownst to them in many ways, I think they had a general idea what they were going to talk about. In fact, we brought them in to contribute. But what they didn't know was that we brought So Young in to actually help them over the course of about an hour create their own course. And I think if you think if Dan can do it, anybody can. I'm not. I hope we don't have any deans on the line at the moment, but if 30 deans can do it, anybody can. But that was, in fact, Nick Martivell on the line asked about training faculty members. And I think the way he's expressing this question, I'm not sure if he means using Nobi as a tool to train faculty members in, for example, micro learning instructional design, or if he's talking more generally about the use of or the training related to instructional design more generally. But I think he's talking about the use of the tool as a way to help them, not even only with mobile micro learning, but also with digital learning in general. Can you talk a little bit about how schools have used this as a training tool for faculty?
Oh, sure. A few examples. So we have one of the largest preschool educators, here in Singapore with 4,000 staff distributed across over 100 centers. They're called NTUC First Campus or Seed Institute. And one of the challenges they had was faculty development, given that faculty are at the 100 centers. Getting everyone logistically into one space, obviously the cost is very high, but then inevitably many teachers would miss the training because of the times and because they were running their class and all these kinds of things. So what they did is a few years ago, they started to Novify staff development and training, everything from compliance to some of the more mandatory boring stuff like compliance, PDPA, student privacy. And then they started to then do faculty development and training where like child block play, best practices and innovation. And so they started to use it then to do staff development. And now they literally, this is a few years in, they use it for they use it for everything, communication, staff development, onboarding. So they've now really evolved their use case. And it's basically kind of the platform for digital experience and digital content, as well as learning for their 4,000 staff.
Great. Thank you, So Young. Nick, anything you want to add to that?
Sorry, I was replying to questions on the on the note. I was helping because I know we won't have time to cover them all, so I missed that one. Sorry, but it sounded great.
Yeah, but that's the one thing. So Nick and I, what we will do is commit to, if you do post any questions in the Nobi group board, we will commit to answering those questions after this because we won't catch them all right now. So as long as we can see them, we'll answer them. And you can always message us actually by just clicking here and then messaging us in this board and just messaging us. You can find us and message us here, or just talk to the curator. And then you'll basically get to talk to me and Nick. So, so just encourage all of you to do that.
Absolutely.
Right.
We have a question I'm going to get to in a second about measuring learning, something that in business schools has become essential, right? How do we ensure that learning takes place? But before I get that, I just wanted to ask a question. In some ways, we focused on, micro learning in terms of the content and how we break up the content and share it. We've, through experience using the app and interacting with each other, we experience the peer-to-peer dimension of learning, which I think we all believe in business schools, especially is essential. But could you tell me a little bit how you've seen experiential learning, sort of project-based learning, play out on a platform like Nobi? Because this is also something very important in business education, right? It's not just the theory, but it's the application of the theory and doing it in groups. Can you tell us just quickly about that?
Yeah, I can speak to that if you like. Very practically, I had a bunch of students do an art class using the Nobi app. So we're going through Van Gogh, I think it was. And they had a YouTube clip embedded in there so they don't have to go out of the tool. I compiled with a little bit of classroom teaching, but then had them actually get into groups and share their work. You could do it online, have them draw something, take a picture of it, upload it, and then comment on it within each other's on the group wall, which is really helpful because it means I can be distance learning. I could be on summer holiday, but COVID has been happening and things. I can still run an art class online, which is pretty impressive, and still see their work rather than holding it up to a Zoom screen, which might be a little bit blurry and I can't quite see what I'm looking at to be able to give feedback, because I've done that too. So the Nobi tool was quite helpful for that. Another one, I actually, so I teach a bunch of university students best practice in teaching. And I had them leverage the Nobi tool to teach. So it was teaching them how to teach, but using Nobi. And it was very experiential, very interesting to see how they incorporated the tool, because the tool is not supposed to be a standalone thing by itself. Really, if technology is really, really great, it should kind of almost hide in the back as a facilitator and just enhance the learning experience and an in-classroom experience. And it worked really well for that. So
yeah, and I'll just give another example. The first program that I notified is design thinking. So my design thing, I took my 3-day design thinking workshop and I Nobified it into 20 little sessions. So in Nobi, mine was meant to be asynchronous without me there because I was trying to scale myself. So what I did for the 20 sessions, I give everyone little actions. So in Nobi, we call our programs, sessions, and actions. So every single action was, okay, today go pick a user you're going to design for. So then they would write down, I'm going to Dan. Then the next action would say, okay, go interview Dan and ask them these questions. Or what questions are you going to ask Dan? Then you'd write down your questions. Then it would say it would take you step by step, all things that you would need to do to execute your project. And then you were sharing prototypes, sharing it with the group. And then but this was asynchronous. So this was done globally asynchronous, but over like kind of like a month or so where everyone was going through this project together. Very powerful, very powerful. And because I'm an educator, I always care about the impact. So then, of course, I embedded in the reflection questions. What did you learn about yourself? What did you learn about your user? And when I compare face-to-face with this virtual, which was asynchronous, the insights and the ahas were actually the same. They were the same.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, they got the same insight and I was not even there.
Sometimes it's too, I find online because we tend to share more things online when I'm typing than I would do in person because I've got more time to think about it. So I actually feel like I get to know my participants on a deeper level through Nobi than in person.
Yeah.
And so basically people were like, this, like, no, it was like so young in my pocket. So that's kind of what they were like, you were guiding my pocket. And I was like, okay, well, I am small, but
I like that. So young in my pocket, but you're right. I mean, sometimes we tend to think about technology as a way for content to be distributed, right? For people to gain the knowledge that an expert has. But really the real opportunity is for learners to share insights, right? To take something they've learned, reflect on it, and to share back and to share across. And I think that mobile dimension that's associated with micro. I remember you taught me this so young, a long time ago, that you really can't have mobile without micro, right? And getting into that space is particularly important. But now the assessment question, what have you learned? What kinds of tools might be available? How does this fit into the instructional design certification, for example, when you think about this critical question about assuring learning in this context?
do you want me to take that?
Either or either. So I can start and you can fill in the blanks. Does that sound good? Sure. So it's a great question, Dan, and I'm so glad you raised it because I think I want to know how engaging has it actually been for my participants? Are they actually going through the course? Do I know? Do I not? And I think a lot of platforms out there don't actually provide that information. So it's really exciting to know that Nobi does. So on the dashboard on the back end, in terms of the analytics, you can actually see at the minute detail when someone stops, how long they've stopped for in terms of the content. You can see how long they've spent on an action or across a program. You can actually see all of the student answers, participant answers, whether they've shared or not. So it's really helpful. So from the student perspective, the participant perspective, all of their answers are recorded, so they can go back and revisit that any time. But on the back end, from a educator's perspective or a facilitator's perspective, it's really important to be able to see, especially in terms of feedback, how are they actually learning anything? We also have like push notifications, or in-app like star ratings, so I can assess the quality of my program. So let's just say halfway through, I'm just not quite sure if this content's going to land. I'm going to put a star rating tool in there to assess the effectiveness of it. So from the participant perspective, they just press a 4 out of 5. And on the back end, I am able to see all of that. And if I'm getting really similar results, hey, it's a 2 out of 5, I got to go back and I've got to tweak that element of the content. So I can be really, really strategic with tools like that Nobi has. So do you want to jump in? I think about more.
Sure. No, I love that because I think, Nick, you talked about the learner kind of assessment side in terms of learner feedback. Then on the programmatic side, I mean, of course, we have the summative assessment tools that if you finish this course and you get 80% right, That's your pass rate. So you can basically automate that entire assessment process, quantitative, as well as qualitative project-based assessment. So let's say I was going to assess my participants on design thinking before I want to give them a certificate of completion, then I would have them submit their design thinking project, give them feedback and rate, and create a custom rubric on the back end so that a rater can go in and look at it. And we also have the ability to do like an endorser. So for example, let's say I don't trust that Nick did all the content, then Nick has to say, okay, Dan was my manager and he actually, confirms that this was the project and this is what I did. And then I can assess that as the educator. So that's kind of the more advanced kind of project-based and manual assessments. And so that's really also can be used for project for like 360 feedback as well, where you're getting kind of literally, multiple people to review your project or review your work. And so I think on the assessment side, it's really important to, I think, provide multiple tools, if you will, to allow that. And then on the back end, we have a skills performance index, or we call it an SPI. So every student or user or learner has a skills performance index that gives them what they've been spending their time on and how that compares relative to other people in their cohort or in their class. So that becomes another tool to coach and to develop the students.
That's very helpful. In fact, I think you've touched on a number of other questions at the same time in addressing that one, including this question about security. I know often this is one of those things that we worry about, is the student actually doing the work? And you touched upon the endorser and all of these kinds of methods. And I imagine there's some tools also, if not already built in, that would be important to ensure security in the platform. But this is a good time, I think, to switch gears a little bit. I want to tell everyone a little bit about why GBSN, right? So you got the Global Business School Network, as I hope everyone on the call already knows. Our mission at GBSN is to improve access to quality, locally relevant management education for the developing world. And it's you can pick on many parts of this mission statement, including the access part, right? So for us, it's critical. We think mobile learning, for example, in sub-Saharan Africa is going to be critical. If it already is, as So Young has expressed. And for us to help faculty members, creators, as we know them in this webinar, to be able to develop content based on their experience and expertise is critical. But another piece of this is the local relevance, right? So, I think this is where So Young and Nick were coming from initially when we started talking about scale, right? I think some people think technology is a way to reach a world where a small set of individuals are sharing their expertise globally, right? Think of MOOCs, for example. But in our world at GBSN, it's not like that. It's about empowering people locally to share their experience, their knowledge, their expertise, and empower them to learn from each other. So I think the context in which NOBI sits and the context in which micro-instructional design fits perfectly into the mission of GBSN. So what So Young and Nick have kindly agreed is, of the $10 million in scholarships, we would work hard at GBSN to make $1 million of that available specifically for GBSN members, to work hard. And when I say work hard at it, in some ways, this is not a big ask, right, for NOBI, but for GBSN to say, look, this is where we think we ought to be. This is where we think we need to look forward to. And this is what we're willing to do to commit to bringing learners to the platform. I think this is critical. So we had a few questions about the program in particular. I want to, I think these are sometimes one-word answers. How long does the level 1 certification last? Right. So what's the program duration? Secondly, if you could talk a little bit about the program in general, but also how does this play out in terms of the next steps for level 2, for example, in terms of fees and anything like that. You mentioned the scholarship potential for level 2 as well, but tell us a little bit more specifically about the scholarship and how it works. Nick?
Sorry, the level 2 probably Soyoung could speak to a little better, but it was mentioned before that it takes 3 to 5 hours for the MID one. So if you're really fast and you're familiar with things, probably more on the 3-hour side, but we allow 5 for everybody in between who's at different stages of understanding. And in terms of the scholarship, I'll let Soyoung speak into that for level 2.
Well, I guess you're doing the raffle right now, right?
That's correct. Yes. So that was mentioned already as well. That when you sign up, you'll get, based on a referral, like, hey, Soyoung actually referred me. I put her name in. Her name goes in the draw to win access to level 2, which is going to be starting in the middle of August.
Yeah. So the level 2 is a master class, and so the raffle is what Nicola is talking about, and you'll get that in level 1, access to that. The level 2, of course, for some of the schools, if we're going to do them in bulk, then please just contact us and then we'll work with you, because that's usually 5,000 per person. But of course, if you have a class or a cohort, we'll work with you in terms of budget. We don't want budget to be a huge constraint for going through the level 2 accreditation. So maybe Nick, what would be the best way? Should they just email you? Do you want to put your email address or email success@Nobi? What would be best? Maybe we put that in the
email on the chat.
Okay, or in the Nobi group board. Yeah.
Yeah.
How does this relate to the Nobi? So you get the certification. There's a question here about will it be as a result of that certification, you'll be capable of utilizing Nobi sort of out of the box as a tool, and how does that relate to that? I guess licensing and things like that.
Well, so just to be really clear, you don't have to be certified to use Nobi. All of you are Nobi users right now. And in fact, all of you can go to your home screen and there's a little yellow button that says create. And in fact, we encourage all of you to do that. So after as a assignment or action item from this conversation, all go to the home screen of your phones and literally click on the yellow button and start creating. So you can start creating, using this little yellow button called create. Right. And so the certification gives you the science of instructional design to help you as you Nobify, to teach you why and how to do it based on adult learning science and theory. So that's the reason why you do the certification. And so once you have your level 1, you can put your digital certificate signed by our professors on your LinkedIn profile and your skills profile that you are certified. Now, there'll be thousands of people who are certified. But some of you want to become really master practitioners. And that's really where the level 2 accreditation comes in, because you really want to be known to be accredited. Then you kind of join a more exclusive group of professionals who are just highly skilled, and we can even outsource. Let's say we have MID projects, then we might even outsource it to our MID accredited community. So this is also could be a potential job opportunity, future skills, as just like e-learning design was 20 years ago. Now there are people who literally, they spend all their day doing e-learning design. And so we believe that we're going to be creating a whole new batch of professionals who are micro-learning designers.
Great. So yeah, I think you answered Lena's question also on the app. If I understood you correctly, right now, all of us can be out creating courses. And some of those could be offered for a fee. Others may be offered for free. Do I understand that correctly? So Young?
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, we encourage all of you to create. And so you can create and start playing around. You can use templates, etc. We have something called the Nobi Shop, which is an e-commerce engine and plugin. Even with the free plan, you can have access to the Nobi Shop.
Thank you.
And monetize your content.
Right, you've enabled many of us already on this webinar, and we just appreciate Nick, you and Soyoung joining us today. I know Soyoung, we promised to let you go by midnight your time. I think that it just struck midnight. Hopefully the it's still a carriage and hasn't turned back into a
I just get so energized by these conversations that I'm good.
Yeah, well, we are energized by both So Young, you and Nick being here, and to share with us your experiences as well as your tools, and to help empower creators all over the world. So thank you so much for being here, and thank you everyone for joining us. And we'll look forward to further communication about the scholarship program and building on our initial ideas. Thanks so much.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thanks so
Thanks,
much.
Dan.
Thank you, Jen.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.